I would just add to that, one of our favorite sayings from one of our Passionistas is done is better than perfect. So just do it. Just take the first step. You don't have to have everything in place. You don't have to know 100% what you do. And Amy and I figure it out all as we go along all the time. So just take the first step, and you'll gain some momentum, but just do it.
Looking for real stories that lift you up and light a fire inside? Welcome to Inspire and Impact, the podcast where purpose meets perseverance. This is where transformation begins and your story continues.
Welcome to the Inspire and Impact podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Rosenstein. The show features real conversations with thought leaders, healers, entrepreneurs, and creatives who share their journeys of growth, purpose, and making meaningful impact. Today I have the honor of interviewing Amy and Nancy Harrington. Ladies, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having us, Daniel. We're really excited to be here.
Wonderful. Can you introduce yourselves to the audience?
Sure. So I'm Nancy Harrington. My sister Amy is here with me. We are sisters, lifelong best friends, and business partners. And we have an organization called the Passionistas Project, where we have a community of women that come together to lift one another up and learn from each other.
Yep. Same for me. Ditto.
So can I ask you, what caused you to leave your previous careers? And maybe you could share with the audience a little bit, what were you doing before to start this, passion community?
Yeah, sure. So Nancy and I both started in the world of entertainment. Nancy had her own graphic design business and theater company back in Boston. And I moved out to Los Angeles to get into the entertainment industry right out of college. I ended up becoming the vice president of post-production and visual effects for Warner Brothers feature films. And I worked on about 250 movies, including the first couple Harry Potters and the Matrixes, some Batmans, all kinds of things. And then Nancy moved out to LA to be closer to me. And she started doing Academy Award campaign ads for Miramax and did that for about a year. And we both finally were at the point where we were ready for a new adventure at the same time. And we knew that we wanted to do that together. Frankly, being in the entertainment industry can be very dog eat dog. What you hear about it in that regard is true a lot. And we were both at the point where we wanted to work with the one person we trusted most on the planet, and that was each other. So we didn't really know what we were going to do, but we decided to join hands and go off on a mad adventure that had a lot of twists and turns, including helping start up a website that was all pop culture content, where we wrote about music and games and TV shows and movies from 1962 to 1992, which was an entree into meeting some women from the Television Academy who ultimately hired us to edit, produce, conduct interviews, both long archival interviews with people in front of and behind the camera in television, and also to do red carpet interviews, including the Emmy Awards every year for 10 years. And so we loved it. We both discovered this passion for interviewing, much as I know you have recently. And we realized that this was what we really wanted to be doing. But when the Me Too movement started really flaring up, we realized that we wanted to use those skills to do something more impactful and to really focus on women. So we ultimately decided to start a podcast, which we still have, called the Passionistas Project Podcast, where we interview women who are following their passions to inspire other women to do the same. That led to an annual virtual Women's Equality Summit, where we bring women from marginalized communities together to talk about our common ground, but also celebrate our differences. And we were feeling like those conversations would die out after the summit would end. And we were looking for a way to keep the momentum going and in 2024, we launched an online community, which we call the Passionistas Project Sisterhood, because sisterhood is what we're all about. And so now we have a space where women can come and continue those conversations and support each other in business development, personal growth, and social impact. And that's where we are today.
I find that so amazing because I mean, both of you obviously had successful careers beforehand. Can I ask you? I mean, what gave you both like the leap of faith to like go into this? Because like for a lot of people, when you had like you said like these, I mean, I personally think like you guys both had like amazing jobs or like careers compared to a lot of other people. I mean, you weren't like working at some retail store making $10 an hour, stocking stuff on shelves. You had
Totally.
more accomplished, positions, and then to go from that to starting your own business. I mean, for a lot of people, that's really scary. So I'm just curious to know what gave you both like the leap of faith to like go into like follow your passions and instead of like finding another job or what I mean at a different company.
Yeah, I think the short answer to that is because we had each other. And we knew we would take care of each other no matter what. The longer answer is I have actually always been an entrepreneur. I had that one job when I worked in the ad agency. It was about, I don't know, 3.5 years. That was the only time in my adult life I had a full-time job. Other than that, I have worked for myself. So I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit. So to me, it wasn't as scary to take that leap back. I really wanted to be on my own again. But I know it was harder for Amy because she was a born and bred, full-time employee. So it was a harder leap. For me, the money was a little hard to walk away from, I have to be honest. But I have always put my happiness and my quality of life before my income, probably to my detriment sometimes. But for me, it was less of a leap. But I know for Amy, it was harder. I'll let her speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely scarier for me because I came, even though I worked in the entertainment industry straight out of college, I never had downtime. I always went from job to job really consistently. I didn't have like summer hiatuses like a lot of people did. I would get jobs in the summer. And then to have this contract studio job where I like would lock in for 3 years at a time. But to be honest with you, I just wasn't happy. There were shifts in the organization that I wasn't comfortable with. And also it was becoming really redundant, which I know sounds crazy, but when I started in visual effects, especially, it was the beginning of the computer, actually being able to create things in the computer. And we did one of the first big city shots in the Batman Forever. And it was this huge, like, fly through Gotham City, all in the computer. If you look at it now, it looks like a video game from 1992. But at the time, it was like state of the art. And by the time I left, we were working on all these sequels. And it was like, how are we going to make Harry Potter fly again? And it's like, well, the same way we did in the first two movies. We're going to do this and that. And I just started to feel I'm a very curious person. I like new things. And I had always promised myself that if I ever got to a point with that job where I didn't enjoy it anymore, that I would leave, because I agree with you, Daniel. It is an insanely incredible opportunity to have. And I always felt like whoever had that job should love it and get to enjoy it as I did for so many years. So it was hard to leave the security of it, but it was easy to leave knowing that there was something more out there for me. And that especially just, I wanted to spend all of my days with people and that I really enjoyed being around. And there's nobody, besides our significant others who are wonderful, there's nobody on the planet I enjoy more than Nancy. And so it was easy to go from working 80 hours a week around people that weren't necessarily my best friends to, oh, I can spend all day working with Nancy and we'll figure it out. Okay, let's do that. So that was the big impetus.
I just find it like so amazing that you're really like, following your true passions, like following the path of your heart versus just like getting like another job. Because I think a lot of people would have like had a trepidation saying, no, that's like too much to do. Like, that's really scary. And I did it
It is scary.
myself.
It's not always easy. It's not always easy. There are definitely, and we were making much better money than we make now, but um, I wouldn't go back to it for anything. I would much rather wake up every day with purpose and know that I'm helping people and that we're changing people's lives and having a really significant impact, even just on one person, than go back to
And
that.
the other thing is, those were our passions back then. I think the really important message is that your passions can change. Amy was so passionate. Like, she's been talking about going to Hollywood and making movies since she was a little kid. Like, that was a huge passion of hers. So I think we've always followed our passions. We come from a very artistic family. Our parents met in art school, and we were all very encouraged to be creative and to do what we loved. So it came naturally for us. So I think we've always followed our passions, but we allow those passions to change, and we allow ourselves to follow those changes. You know?
So, did
Yeah.
you have any like challenges or hurdles when you started like, your own business? Like, if so, like, what were those, like, some of those challenges?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's been lots of challenges. I think it took us a while to figure out what we wanted to do. First of all, it was, like I said, we were kind of bouncing around and someone would offer us a gig and it would be like, oh, that sounds interesting. Yeah, we'll figure that out. Let's do that. But when we finally decided to start our own company, which originally is still called the Pop Culture Passionistas, and when we got into the pop culture content, interviews, and writing and stuff, um, we had just been let go from the website that I had mentioned earlier, and we were offered a couple gigs, and it was like, yeah, we can go paint someone else's fence, or we can build our own. And honestly, like, we started from square one. It was one day, it was like, I guess we should start like a blog. Like, that was what people were doing at the time. And so we figured out how to start a blog. And then we literally were like doing side gigs. There was a thing for a while called Mahalo, which was like Wikipedia, but a competitor. And we were doing like writing $8 entry, you know, descriptions of different things for Mahalo. Like, we were doing whatever we could to just like make enough money to keep it going. And so it took a while to get on our like some stability financially. Um, and we still do that through clients a lot. It's still like the Passionistas project continues to grow as our core business, but we still have clients that help support that. So that's a challenge, is balancing the client work and really carving out time to focus on building the sisterhood. Um, but in terms of the creative side and the vision side of it, like, that's all actually come really easily. In fact, I was thinking about it today when we were talking to somebody about everything we have to offer in the community, and we were kind of going through the list, and it really clicked to me, because she was like, wow, there's so much to benefit from in the sisterhood. And I was thinking, to God, every single thing on this list is something Nancy and I talked about doing 10, 15 years ago, as we've been growing the community, like having our own Passionistas TV network, having our own Passionistas podcast network, having a directory of women-owned businesses, having course, like, it's all been part of the vision. And it's just been a matter of rolling it out and learning technology and finding the people and that want to partake in it. And that's now all becoming, the technology, I feel like we're there. The vision is 100% clear to us. And now the community is growing and the word of mouth is spreading, and more women are coming every day because they're hearing from people they know and trust, like, this space exists for you and you need to come check it out. So I think the biggest challenge is just being patient, as the plan comes together and clicks into place, and keeping ourselves sustained financially while we've been building it. But beyond that, it's fun. We love doing it. We never fight. We know who we're here to serve and how we want to serve them. So we're really blessed in that way. And we feel like if we know that, then the rest of it will ultimately take shape.
I mean, both of you have such wonderful energy. As soon as like you come on camera, it's just like you both like radiate this like energy of positivity and like hope and love. It's like I'm sure a lot of people tell you guys that you come across very likable, right?
Thank you.
We
That
hear
means
that
a
a lot.
lot.
Thank you. That's nice.
It's genuine, we're Boston girls. We can't fake anything. So this is just who we are. And people either like us or they don't, but we just want to do good, like we've been really blessed. We have had charmed lives, and we just want to see, especially women from marginalized communities who haven't necessarily had the opportunities that we've had. We just want to find out, like, what's their story? How can we support them? How can we bring other women together? Even with you, like, how can we introduce you to people that might help you grow your podcast? Like, it's just energy breeds energy. So that's our mission.
Yeah.
No, I really love the name like Passionista. That's really creative and unique. Like, can you maybe tell? Was there like a story behind that? Like, what does Passionista mean to you?
Yeah. Yeah. When we first started the pop culture Passionistas, we were searching for a name. We wanted something about pop culture. We didn't know what it was. And we were searching. And I came across an article about an advertising agency that used the word passionistas to describe people who are passionate about products. And it was sort of like a code word in their office about the buyers of the products they were advertising. And I thought, passionistas, that's cool. So Amy and I started tossing that around, and we came up with pop culture passionistas. And then when we started the podcast and started the community, it even took on more meaning, because before it was us, like, we were passionate about pop culture. That's cool. But now it's just become a movement, and the women in our community are the passionistas. And it's really, taken on a life of its own. And since then, that was a long time ago. That was 2010. So since then, the word has sort of begun to surface in the ether, and we see it in other places. But back then, it wasn't even a word. If you search the word in 2010, the only thing that came up was this one article. And now if you Google the word, we pretty much come up pretty fast, pretty high on the list.
Yeah, and it's women who are passionate. And one woman in our community described it as the power grid. And I always love that. It's where women can come if they're feeling depleted, if they're feeling alone, and have kind of lost their will to, move into the next phase. Like, this is the place you can plug into and get the energy that you need to keep going. And I love thinking of the passionistas as the power grid that fuels women's desires to succeed and flourish.
I think it's so wonderful and it's so well needed. Like, you briefly mentioned about like when the Me Too movement kind of like started. I mean, when it first came out, like in the media, it was very shocking to me because I had no idea what was going on in that world, and it was just so much negative connotation about like the whole thing, and rightfully so, because there's some things that happened that I don't know how it happened, but like it did. And but like, instead of taking a negative spin and people complaining, you're actually doing something positive about it. Instead of like saying, well, like, hey, we're victims, Like, you're saying, no, we're actually empowering women to do something positive and to follow your passion and your heart's desires. Is, to me, like one of like, life's biggest goals, right?
Yeah. And that's exactly right. We heard about all of the horrible stories that were coming out with the Me Too movement. Sadly, we did know those stories were happening, and thankfully they never happened to us. But we certainly know a lot of women who have had horrible things happen to them. But yes, you're right. They were very important stories, and they needed to be told. And absolutely, I wish more of them were still told. I feel like it was a moment in time, and now it's been sort of, you know, other more important stories have taken their place. But yes, back then we thought these stories are important and need to be told, but there are other stories about women that need to be told. We need to hear the stories of women who are following their passions, women who have stepped into their power. And so that can inspire other women to do that too. So that really was the seed of the podcast and the whole movement that we've created.
Now, I know you've like interviewed a lot of people within the Passionista movement. Was there any like particular interview that was really like extremely exceptional, or really like you know, like either shocking or something you'd like to share with the audience that you thought that was just like worth sharing?
Yeah, I mean, we really pride ourselves with the Passionistas on focusing on women who don't often get the spotlight. And we don't do a lot of celebrity interviews in the Passionistas. One of the most powerful women we interviewed was a total shock, because we always ask our guests to nominate somebody else. And we went to interview a woman one day, and she said, "Oh, you wanted me to nominate someone, right?" And we said, "Yeah." And she was like, "Oh, this is Lynn." And this woman was sitting in her living room, and she's like, "When you're done with me, you can interview her." We're like, "We got to do research. We got to, you know." And then she started to tell us Lynn's story, and we stayed and we interviewed her. And she basically was the biggest nuclear arms dealer in the world, because she would buy nuclear weapons and melt them down and carve peace angel sculptures out of them. And one of them, it's one of the only pieces of modern art by a woman in a major museum, which is still a very rare thing, believe it or not. And it's in the 9/11 museum, because the peace angel was outside. They brought it to New York right after 9/11, and they had it outside a restaurant that was one of the only places the first responders could go to eat, because everything else was closed down. And whenever somebody new had come to start helping out at the site, they would say, "Where can I go to eat?" And they would say, "Just go down the street and look for the angel." And so it became this iconic thing. So that to me was always one of the most amazing. I still get goosebumps all over me when I talk about Lynn. Um, but in terms of the most amazing half hour Nancy and I will ever have in our lives, and it's okay for us to say that because we don't have children, which otherwise would be the birth of our children. The most amazing half hour we have ever had in our lives was when we got to interview Dr. Jane Goodall, who has been our hero since birth. And we gave her a Passionistas Persist Award in 2022, I think. And we're able to interview her over Zoom at her house in London, where she grew up. And it was the most amazing thing ever. So
Magical.
Yeah.
So I know you used
We've
to
interviewed a lot of celebrities, but that was really cool.
But can I ask you, since like you used to interview celebrities like on an ongoing basis, how has that shaped the way you do like your interviewing on your podcast today?
Oh, it was everything. You know, we had the honor of learning the skill of interviewing at the Television Academy from our mentor Karen Herman. And Karen initially worked at the Shoah Foundation with Spielberg and did the Holocaust survivor interviews, and then she started the archive at the Television Academy, which is the people who do the Emmys. And I think to date, they have over 1,000 interviews now, and they're archival interviews, 3 or 4 hours long, with people behind the scenes and on camera. And Karen taught us how to do interviews. I mean, we didn't know what we were doing. We had done a few interviews before we got that job, and she sat with us and taught us about, you know, arcing out a story and the art of follow-ups. And, you know, she really just molded us into great interviewers. I mean, I will boldly say we're very good interviewers. And so it was everything to get those interviews. And I think they were nerve-wracking. They're so scary to sit down and talk to a celebrity, a foot away from you for 4 hours is very scary, especially for two shy, introverted women like ourselves. But yeah, it gave us the foundation we need to do everything we're doing now. We became storytellers through that process. So we're eternally grateful for it.
Yeah, and I also think doing the red carpets, which are so the exact opposite of that, which are like think on your feet. You have questions, they would give us these are the question like 10 questions that we want you to ask. But then you get someone in front of you and it's like, yeah, but we got to ask this. And you never know who's going to walk up next. So all of a sudden you could be interviewing, one of the stars from Dancing with the Stars. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, here's Bob Newhart, like one of my favorite human beings of all time. And you just have to shift gears. You have people waiting. You have to know when to move them out so that you can talk to the next person. And the energy is so intense. And so I feel like we got the best of both worlds because we had those intensive, focused in a dark room, one-on-one conversations. And then we had this chaotic, like, oh, okay, there's like birds flying at your head trying to, stay on top of things. So we were just so lucky that it really shaped us. It gave us the full picture, I think, of what to deal with and thinking fast on your feet,
Yeah, that's for sure.
It sounds like you probably have a lot of like amazing experiences doing all of that, and I'm sure like you probably met a lot of interesting people. Probably have tons of stories. We probably do a whole separate podcast just on those stories.
Yeah. And we have done that. We've gone on radio shows, so they've just asked us all sorts of questions about our interviews. It's fun to do.
It is fun.
So I'm gonna ask.
You want to ask? What do you want to ask? You're dying to ask. Go ahead.
Happy to talk about it.
I think it's going to open up a whole can of worms. You probably know a lot of heard about a lot of celebrities by talking to so many people.
What's interesting about the TV Academy, and I also think this was important for us. The TV Academy interviews were never gotcha interviews. They were really focused on the positive and on the person's journey and on their process. And so people opened up to us because they knew they could trust us. It was a trusted brand, and we were never going to ask a question that would upset them or make them feel uncomfortable. And we carried that into our interviews as well. I'm always amazed. Like I'll watch interviews with people and it's like, oh, wow, you're going there. Okay. Did they know you were going to ask them about that? Because that's like super sensitive. And it's not to say we actually get really sensitive things out of people, but on their terms. Like they end up just telling us things because they trust us rather than us trying to dig and get something that they don't want to share. So I think that was a huge lesson at the TV Academy too, like build a brand that people can trust and feel safe. And I think that's one of the things Nancy and I pride ourselves on, is making everybody feel really safe when they're talking to us. And we always tell them, if you say something that you don't want to go out with on the podcast, we will edit it out. If you regret something you said, don't worry, we'll.
And that's the Academy's policy too, which is great.
So why do you think storytelling is so powerful? It's such a powerful process or way to communicate?
Mm-hmm. It's the age-old, lifelong thing, right? I mean, that's what people did before there was paper, and it was like you tell the story, and everybody's story matters. We talk to so many women who think their story isn't important and it doesn't matter, and every story matters because you never know who needs to hear your story and how that's going to help them and affect them. And so yeah, I think storytelling is everything.
And I also think it's critical in the world we live in right now. And no matter what side of the political spectrum you're on, no matter what religion or race you are, we live in a time that's very divisive. And our whole thing is building a platform where women can talk about their experiences, whether that's when they were a kid or something they're going through today. And there are lots of different women in the sisterhood, and they don't necessarily align on everything that's happening in the world. But when they hear that somebody that they know, that they've come to like as a friend or collaborator, is going through an experience that they might not have thought about otherwise, and now they have not only a face to it, but a real emotional connection to that person, it makes people think twice about how they are walking through the world and the choices that they're making that might be impacting other people in a negative way. And I think it's really important right now that we're listening more than talking, and letting the people who need us the most tell their stories. Because I don't, if you're in the sisterhood, you're there because you are a caring person. It actually is a trait of our members that we're really happy about. And I know that they can't listen to someone's story who's struggling through a situation right now and not have empathy for it. So I think that, yeah, you can hear a fact about something and make a choice, but when you hear somebody's story, it can really change the world. It could, one person at a time, it can impact the way people view society, which is mind-boggling, really, when you think about it.
Yeah, she said that much better than me.
We said different and important things.
Well, that's the advantage of interviewing two people at the same time. It's like you get to either say what the other person didn't say, or just say in different words.
Yep.
Yeah. We haven't interviewed too many people two people at the same time, but we will share one of our other favorite interviews that we ever did was with two people at the same time. And we interviewed Penny Marshall and Cindy Williams, also known as Laverne and Shirley. I don't know if you're old enough, Daniel, to remember Laverne and Shirley, but they were our childhood heroes. And we got to sit down with Penny and Cindy and interview them. And there's a pretty fantastic afternoon to watch them. Just what happened was I interviewed Cindy, and then Amy interviewed Penny, and then Amy interviewed both of them at the same time. And they literally morphed into Laverne and Shirley right in front of our eyes, and it was pretty spectacular.
If you don't mind me asking this question, and if you don't want me, you don't have to answer. I mean, with interviewing all these celebrities, when you actually, so like you're having these heart-to-heart interviews, do you find that they, like, you get to, like, you already know them, or do you, like, after, like, you have this interview, you're like, oh my God, this person's a totally different person than I thought, like, like you see them like Laverne and Shirley on camera. I mean, I have no idea what they're like in real life.
Yeah, I think people are genuinely honored to do Academy interviews, so they put their best foot forward. But yes, it's amazing to see them be real people, but you also do get a glimpse of, you always hear about the it factor, and they have it, and and you see that with these people. There is something special about these people that you can't really, it's not tangible, but there is something. But also the other thing is, and we say this a lot, is after you do an intensive 3 or 4 hour interview with somebody, man, we spent 6 or 7 hours at Penny Marshall's house that day. Yeah. And by the end of the day, she was walking us out to the car in the driveway, and she didn't want us to leave. And we felt like, oh my God, we're going to be best friends with Penny Marshall forever. And, we never spoke to her again. That was it. She was really, really lovely. We had a lovely day. We never spoke to her again. But with the Passionistas, we do these interviews, and some of the women that we did for our first or second interview 7 or 8 years ago are still friends. We talk to them on a regular basis. So I think that's the difference, is the celebrity thing. There's this feeling that you've made a connection where you really haven't. But with the Passionistas, it's a real connection. And we really like fall in love with these people and become really good friends with them.
I think that's absolutely amazing that, like you said, like you've interviewed people 7 or 8 years ago and you're still like in touch with them, or maybe even working with them like now. That's absolutely amazing, and a testament to showing that you're really following your hearts, and you're really open to helping a lot of people, because if you weren't, they wouldn't be still in touch with you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it means a lot to us. We have, like I said, we have a lot of friends now from like the disability community and stuff like that, and they really appreciate the fact that we mean what we say, that we aren't out there speaking on their behalf. We're not trying to be like experts on any topic. We're just conveying the stories that we've heard. We're giving them a platform to talk, because so many women from marginalized communities say people talk about us and for us all the time, but we don't get to speak for ourselves. And so we make it a point to, like, Nancy and I only come in front of the camera because we realize that in the world we live in, people want to have a face associated with a brand, and we had to do this, but we would have been happy staying in the background the whole time, because to us it's about letting the women on the podcast speak. It's about, we have a group of women in our community that we call our power passionistas, and they're our resident experts, and we'd be happy to just let them run the show if we could fade into the background and just be behind the scenes. But it's important to us that we do this with integrity, so that we are living up to the promise that we made to all these people, and they tell us that we are, and I think that's why they stick around. And we've been lucky so far that they have, and we've benefited so much from knowing them. We're so lucky.
That's truly amazing. I wanted to talk about, like, like the sisterhood that you created. I mean, for the people in the audience who don't know much about it, can you maybe explain a little bit more? What is the sisterhood? Like, what's the purpose, and who's it really for?
Sure. Well, it's an online community. We've built it on a platform called Circle. So it looks a lot like Facebook when you go there. There's different groups that spaces you can go into, but it's like a wall with a thread. But it's really a place where women can come and connect first and foremost. So it's a networking thing where you can go in and post, and we have a space called Share Anything, and you literally can share anything. You can talk about a project you're doing. You can post that your new podcast episode just dropped. You can go on and say, I'm having a really rough day, and is anybody out there? Can do you want to talk for a second? So it's a really beautiful space just where women can connect and support one another. But we also have workshops and courses, classes, so that women have resources for business development, personal growth, and social impact. We have Passionistas TV, which is our women's empowerment television network. We have a Passionistas podcast network. So we have a directory now of over 50 women hosted podcasts. And we also have monthly meetups where women can come if you're looking to be a guest on a podcast, or you have a podcast, you're looking for guests, or you want to do pod swaps and be on each other's shows, or do ads on each other's shows, or something like that. So we do all sorts of meetups where women can get together, and we call them give, get, and what is it now?
Grow.
Give, get, and grow gatherings, so that women can come and ask, this is what I need right now. And when we all go around the room and women tell how they can help, if they know somebody or a piece of advice, or so it's they're really powerful, ways that women connect and support one another. And it's just this beautiful community where you can come and be yourself. Amy and I get told all the time that they wish people had what we have, and that support and loyalty and fun, and somebody to lift you up when you're down and celebrate you when you win. And we do all those things in the sisterhood.
And one other really important part of it is we have a directory of women-owned businesses. So we're really encouraging women, especially right now during these very challenging economic times, to buy from a Passionista. So rather than get your, candle from Target, go on to the Passionistas directory and find a woman-owned business, a local artisan in our community who sells candles, and buy from her instead. We know of other communities that did it during COVID, and they kept these women-owned businesses afloat during a really uncertain time. And so we want to continue that tradition and build upon it and really create a microeconomy of women supporting each other, because women-owned businesses still, women-owned businesses get 2% of venture capital funding, and that's for white women. But women of color get even less. So it's still very difficult and challenging to be a female entrepreneur, and so the directory is really a place where we can encourage the women in the community to support each other's passion projects and businesses and dreams. So that's a big part of it too.
So if a woman like feels stuck or like they feel unheard, how could like joining the sisterhood like help her?
Yeah, there's you can just come to our website, thepassionistasproject.com, and there's a link there to join the sisterhood. There's a free tier. So you can come and meet everyone, introduce yourself, share your events and your projects, and really get to know people. There's also a premium membership. That's where all the workshops and everything are. But anybody can come and join. We also have a scholarship program for women who would like to take advantage of the premium benefits but can't necessarily afford it. Anyone who signs up for a premium membership, we gift a premium membership to somebody who can't afford it. So just come to our website, thepassionistasproject.com.
Yeah, and the way they benefit is, they join and we instantly reach out to them directly, personally. We get to know what they're looking for. If someone comes and says, I want to learn about, today someone posted, I know I'm late to the game, but should I join LinkedIn? How do I grow my LinkedIn presence? And so we tagged 3 other women that we know in the community. One is a LinkedIn expert. One is Julie DeLuca Collins, who you met, who just knows a lot about the tricks of building on social media. Another is just somebody else that we know that's really active on LinkedIn, and we tagged them. We're like, talk to these women right away. So we instantly try and introduce new members to at least 2 or 3 women that we think they'll connect with. And from there, it just grows. The more you give, the more you get back. The more you post, the more women reach out. And so the instant benefits are those introductions. And then depending on what your interests are, we have tarot readings with Dr. Melissa Bird every 2 weeks. If you're into that kind of stuff, we have at least 3 or 4 workshops every month in each of the disciplines. So there's always a business development workshop or 2. There's always a personal growth workshop. So there's constantly new content that we're adding to help you grow your business, to help you find balance in your life, to help you, we went to a thing today about breathing workshop. And we've done tapping and things like that. So there's always new opportunities for growth in all the areas. If you're an activist, we post a daily newsletter from a woman named Jess Craven, who gives action items for calling your senators and your representatives on different topics. So if something resonates with you, you have a script to make a call. So the benefits are instantaneous, and the potential really just depends on how active you are and how much you want to participate. And then we are always accessible to everybody. So if anybody ever says, we're getting more and more direct messages now every day where someone will be like, I'm really stuck on this. Do you have any advice? And it's like, yep, you'd go, take this course or go talk to this woman or check this out. We have been introducing people to other podcast hosts to try and help them get exposure. So yeah, there are instant benefits for joining for those who come. And we really try, and we're trying not to grow too big so that we can stay aware of everybody's needs, and so that we really know how to help serve each person individually and not just have it become this big sea of faceless people that are lost in the mix. So
that sounds really amazing. I think, like you said, it's really much needed, and I'm glad that like you're coming on this podcast, because I think that's something that a lot of people need. I mean, I've talked to so many people, both women and men, that feel confused, stuck, lonely, like they don't have any support. So it's really wonderful to have such like a great community, and and I know both of you are like doing like an amazing job of helping people and stuff. That's what you guys are really about. I wanted to ask you, like, what would you say to somebody that, like, you're talking about like interviewing celebrities, but they like, what if it's like a woman says, "Well, my story's not big enough. Like, I'm not a celebrity. I don't have like a zero to hero story where like, they made $1 million or lost 100 pounds or found Prince Charming last."
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I come back to every story matters. I mean, I think we just posted our 192nd podcast this week. So that's 192 stories of women who think that they weren't important enough to be on a podcast. And they were. Their stories are interesting and their stories help people. We know people come to our podcast every week and listen to it because it's inspiring. So I would just say to that woman, every woman's story matters. Everybody's story matters. And there's somebody out there. We find it just when we do the interviews, like, oh, that was the message I needed to learn today when we interview someone. So, there's somebody out there that needs to hear what you have to say, and it's going to help them. So that's the reason you need to tell your story.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the other things we do is we have started doing anthology books. And so we didn't want it to just be like, pay us money and then turn in a chapter and good luck. We really wanted it to be of value to people that participated. So we interview every woman who is in the book to help them draw out their story. And almost every woman that signed up was like, I've wanted to do this for a long time, but I've been afraid to tell my story, or I don't think I have a story, or my 6th grade teacher told me I was a terrible writer and I haven't felt comfortable writing since then. The things people put in people's minds when they're young. And inevitably we sit down to do the interview and we say, okay, here's the theme for the book. What story do you want to tell? And they start to talk to us. It's just like a regular interview where they tell us their story, then we ask them questions, and they are blown away by the end of telling us their experience, that they realize, oh my God, this is important. Like, people do need to hear this. And somebody needs to hear your story. There's just so much everybody goes through in their lifetime, good and bad. Like, some of the stories are really fun and uplifting. Like, our sister is one of the authors, and her story is about jumping out of an airplane and going to France to learn how to speak French. And it's like a very lighthearted, fun story, but there's a really great message to it. So just don't underestimate the impact you can have on someone else's life when you take that risk to share your story, because it's going to resonate with somebody and really have an impact.
What's like your process to help, like, women, like, bring up their story and their message? Do you have like a particular process that you use to kind of like shape and fine tune their message and their story?
Yeah, we actually put a whole workshop together. We brought these women through a 6-week workshop. So we have a whole workshop that we put, that we sort of start with, the topic and how they can figure out what that story is and what resonates and what the best stories are to pull out. But the interview process is really our secret sauce, because that's where we have them try to decide what that moment is. I mean, this first book is called Awakening Your Power. So we've asked each woman to come to us with the moment that they stepped into their power, and what that, we really try to get it down to that granular level. Like, what was that moment that changed everything for you? And so we have them tell that story. And as we listen to them, we jot down questions, and we start pulling more out of them. Like, well, but what about this? And what about that? And by the end of the story, 9 times out of 10, they've realized that what they thought was the story isn't the story. There was something else deeper there that we helped draw out of them. So that's kind of the process. It's really the interview process that makes us different, and that really helps them get to the core, instead of being stuck in their head just, trying to figure out what it is. Saying it out loud makes a huge difference.
And also, I think we bring an interesting perspective because Nancy's background in theater and shaping stories that way, and then my experience in film and being in the other part of my film career was the editorial part. So I would go to screenings, the audience recruit screenings where they show the movie to an audience. I would go to every single screening from a director's cut through the premiere. So I would see how a story could change when you move this scene here or cut that and make that shorter. And Nancy had that experience from theater. So we also have this editing perspective, and not even book editing, but just story editing perspective that I don't think a lot of people have, especially to the degree we have. And so it's like, okay, right now you've told us the story, go write what you think your story is. And now we go in and we edit it and we make suggestions about maybe this should happen here, or maybe, you need to get out of this scene quicker and move into this part and go deeper in there. So I think that adds a perspective. Our Hollywood experience and theater experience really brings it to a different level than I think most people experience. People send us scripts and books now all the time, and they're like, do you mind reading this and giving us your feedback? We edit, people's articles for magazines and stuff. So we just have this, and we're also television addicts. So it was so funny. Last night, we put on The Rookie last night. We turned the channel to The Rookie, and I didn't even know it was a TV show. We saw 2 seconds of it, and I said, oh, that they just set that woman up and they're arresting her because she's trafficking these kids. And my boyfriend was like, I thought we were watching a commercial. What are you talking about? And I'm like, I can name that plot line in 2 seconds. And it's like this gay, like, don't watch Law and Order with me. So we just have this like ability to kind of edit a story. And I think that's been really helpful for the women involved too.
Has there been any like standout story that you like to share with like the audience that like you thought that's remarkable, or to kind of inspire more women to want to like come out and speak up or join your community?
Yeah, I mean, God, in terms of women in the community overall, there's so many. I think one of the most powerful relationships we've made over the years is with a woman named Selene Luna, who's she's an actress. She was in Coco, the animated movie Coco. She was on a TV show called, I can't believe I'm forgetting the name of it, the Mayans MC. And she is a woman with a disability. She's a little person, and she's an activist, and she's an amazing actress. And we've just learned so much from her about the disability community and how badly people in the disability community are treated. It's something that still doesn't get talked about much. We talk about a lot of different marginalized communities a lot more. And they're always the first one. Like every policy change that happens in Washington, D.C. somehow affects the disability community. And I think the statistic is something like in your lifetime, 80% of people are going to become disabled at some point in their life as they get older. And so even if just selfishly you're concerned about yourself, you should be thinking about how the disability community is treated, because it's going to impact you or someone you love at some point down the road. So those stories really, really are powerful to me. And we're always looking for ways to uplift the stories of women in that community. I think in the book, one of the stories that I love is a woman who is this diminutive Latina woman who is the sweetest woman you will ever meet. Her name is Dolly Rivera, and she dedicates her life to anti-bullying and teaching parents in schools about bullying and how to help protect kids from that. And she tells a story about her time serving in the Army, where she stood up to one of her senior officers. And I just have she's an amazing writer, and I just have this image of this small woman having the guts to go head to head with this big commanding officer. And she ultimately became a drill sergeant in her unit. And she's just an amazing person. But if you walked by her in the street, you would never think, oh, that woman, went toe to toe with some big army, her boss in the army, and took him down, cut him down at his knees. So I love stories like that, where it's just like, it made her confident to have that moment. And so I love that story from the book.
Yeah.
Now, both of you are both really creative people. So how do you balance your creativity and having a structured business?
That's a good trick. I don't know that we have worked that one out yet, but we try really hard. I think part of what fulfills our creative side every day is that we create every day. We've created this community, and we create content to have on the community. So that definitely fulfills my creative side most of the time. I also still have the graphic design. I'm an artist at heart, so I still, I complain about how much graphic design I have to do for the business, but there's part of me that loves it because it does, that's my little creative outlet every day to go and design social media posts and graphics for the website. And so, but it is hard. I mean, we often say that we want to build the community to a point where we can bring on a COO, so that we have somebody that can really handle the day-to-day business of it, and we can just be creative, because that's where our heart lies. And we can spend our time really connecting with the women and helping them and do more for them. So it's difficult balance. We haven't quite worked that one out yet.
Yeah, and we always joke too, we're never short of ideas. We're constantly like, oh, we should do this. And so it's why I was saying earlier about patience. It's like, oh my God, we so desperately want to do, our new big thing is December. We talked about it last December. We didn't do it. We're doing it this December. We're going to have a Passionistas talent show for our virtual holiday party, because there are so many Passionistas in the community that just are we told one woman today, and she's like, oh, I better practice standing on my head and doing my yoga poses, because that's my skill. And we're like, great. But we have singers, we have musicians, we have women who have been wanting to do stand-up comedy. It's make your debut at our talent show. So finding creative ways to not only channel our creativity, but also find ways to help the other women really tap into their creativity and showcase it is really fun. And it's just a matter of pacing ourselves and not, I think there was a period where we were we got to do everything all at once. And it's no, we're going to do a book club. We're going to roll out the book club later this summer. We're not going to do that tomorrow. So that's where we got to kind of rein in the creative Amy and Nancy a little bit, and let the bosses push us around.
It sounds like you both have so much fun with the Passionistas project. I think you're so lucky, because very few people have get to really live out their passion. And that's leads to my next question for you is what advice could you give to women that they're feel fulfilled in their current career or job, and they're not following their passion right now, but they want to, maybe there's a dream job or dream business they want to start, but they maybe feel stuck or confused, they don't know where to start. Is there any first steps or any advice you can give to people in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, my advice, and it's going to sound like a sales pitch, but it's not, because you can do this for free, is find your people and find a community, whether it's the Passionistas Project or someplace else, where you can get the support you need. Because part of the biggest reason we built the community is, like Nancy said, people saying they wish they had what we had. And the biggest thing that Nancy and I have is we are never alone. There hasn't been a day in my life where I have felt like I'm alone, because I've always had Nancy and my other siblings. And so many entrepreneurs, men and women, or activists or artists who don't have a big structure around them. And frankly, even people who are in big businesses who have to present as like everything's perfect and can't let their guard down and let anybody know they're struggling or they need help. They need community to support them, and they need a place to get resources where they don't have to feel embarrassed to ask for help. And they need a place to just come and vent or, you know, say, I'm hitting a wall and I don't know what to do. Does anybody have any advice? So again, whether that's our sisterhood or some other space, find people that support you on your journey, because you can't do it alone, but you can do it. You can definitely do it. You have faith in yourself. You can accomplish your goal, but you need people to help you do it. And so, you know, anybody's welcome to join us, and we're happy to help connect you with people who want to see you win. We want to see you succeed. There are people out there that do. What else, Nan?
I would just add to that, one of our favorite sayings from one of our Passionistas is done is better than perfect. So just do it. Just take the first step. You don't have to have everything in place. You don't have to know 100% what you do. And Amy and I figure it out all as we go along all the time. So just take the first step, and you'll gain some momentum, but just do it. Don't dream anymore. Take action.
So can you maybe share how have you personally grown since started working on that Passionista project?
God, so immensely. I think Amy and I have benefited more from the Passionistas project than any of the Passionistas in the Passionistas project. I would say personally, on a very personal note, I've grown just because I was 10 years ago. If you told me I was going to be talking on the phone to people 8 hours a day and have a community of women that were my friends, like, no, I've always been part of the reason I've been an solo entrepreneur all my life is because I'm pretty good by myself. Like I had a few friends and I was happy with that. So I all of a sudden I feel like Scrooge, musical Scrooge. I discovered that I like people. And so it's amazing to me to just have my heart so full from all of these fabulous women that are in my life now. I never in a million years expected it.
Yeah. I've had this realization in the last few days, really. My entire life, like since I was born, have been a worrier. I used to sleep with my textbooks under my pillow the night before a test because I'm like, maybe what I haven't learned will absorb into my head and I can get an A. And, like I just have worried my entire life. And I don't worry as much anymore. I used to like lay in bed at night and my monkey brain would go crazy and I would be up all night like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And yeah, there's stuff that still freaks me out, but I am so much more in a place of like, it's all going to work out. And I think that's partly age, but I also think it's because I know that I'm surrounded by people who will help me if I'm in trouble. And whether that's somebody who can hire me for a side gig if I need a little cash, or it's somebody who knows how to do something that I don't know, or if it's somebody who'll like give me a free hypnosis session so I can just get out of my head, or whether it's like an activist who's like, oh, you're having problems with your health insurance, I can give you advice on that. Like we're surrounded by the people who want us to live a better life, and as much as we want them to live a better life. So I just don't worry as much anymore because I know my sisters have my back, and it's the greatest feeling in the world.
Wow, you're both so lucky because a lot of people don't have that.
Yep. That's why we want to give it to them.
Come to the sisterhood and get it.
That's really why we want to give it to them. It's yeah, it would be great if we could support ourselves doing this, but that's really never been our ultimate motivation. Our motivation is how can we ease the stress of someone's day? Because life is too short for all of us to be freaking out about money and, family and relationships and all that stuff. Like, we just got to be there for each other. It's hard enough.
What is it one myth about women and success that you like to bust on this podcast?
Oh, that's a good question.
I think for me, it's that, and I just heard someone say it yesterday, and I was still surprised by it, that women are catty and that they don't support each other. And I think that can be true of certain environments. I know my experience at the studio wasn't so much that women were catty. It was more like I needed to fit in my mind at least, I needed to be one of the guys. And I needed to do that. I needed for the men in the room never to think about whether or not I was a girl. I just had to fit in. And the only way to fit in was to be one of the guys because I was the only girl in the room or one of two girls in the room. And we interviewed a fighter pilot, a female fighter pilot once, and she said something that it wasn't until she said it, and it blew my mind, that if two female fighter pilots walked down the hall and they saw each other, they wouldn't acknowledge each other. It wasn't like, oh, thank God, there's another woman here, she gets me. It was like, don't look at me, because if you look at me and we interact, then now everybody's going to think about the fact that we're the girls and we're not one of them. And I totally used to do that without realizing that I used to do that. So there are those environments where it's still hard to just be a woman and be safe in that space. But there are plenty of places where women can go to get that support. And when you find those women, there is nobody more nurturing, more loving, more supportive than the women who are on your side. And so I think this myth that women aren't nice to each other is a total fallacy. And I can tell you firsthand that there are so many more women that want to cheer women on than the other way around.
Yeah. I think something that comes to mind for me is not necessarily a myth that needs to be busted. It's something that's twisted, and I think people should reframe it, is that women in business are too emotional, and they rely on their emotions for things. And we've always been taught that that's a really bad thing. And I propose that that's not a bad thing, that that's a good thing, and that more businesses should be run by people's hearts and souls and not necessarily their business mind. That if we moved forward in this world with our hearts leading the way, we'd all be a lot better off.
Yeah.
I mean, ditto. I mean, that's the way I see things as well. And it'd be nice if there were more heart-centered people like you ladies, instead of really cold-hearted people. That's
Yeah,
one.
all about the bottom line, you know.
Yeah.
So my next question, and second to last, is if you can go back in time and give your younger selves a piece of advice, what would that be?
I would tell my younger self to not worry so much about what other people are thinking. You know, I spent a lot of time, many years, worrying, you know, do they like me? Do they think I'm too quiet? Do they think this? Do they think that? And it took me a really long time to realize it doesn't matter. That all that matters is I'm being my authentic self, and that the people that like me are my people, and the people that don't are not my people. And so, yeah, that is definitely what I would go back and tell baby Nancy.
Yeah, I think I'd tell Amy to trust her gut more. Like, anytime I've ever made a decision based on my gut and my intuition, it's been the right move. And there have been so many times where I'll have a flash of something. Like, I think about that website we worked for. It was like, I remember going to a meeting with the guy who ultimately hired us at the website, and he worked at another company. We walked in, I was like, oh, it'd be fun to work at this place. And it was like a flashing thought. And then 6 months later, they started this other company and he hired us there. And it was like, oh, I guess deep down, I had this inkling that was where I was supposed to be. And that's happened a million times in our lives. And I think we churn and we worry, are we making the right decision? Oh, I should be doing this. And it's like, no, you know where you're headed. You know what you want, and just trust that you're making the right decisions. And our friend Dr. Melissa Bird always says, like, there's no fork in the road. It all interconnects. And if you're meant to be at point B, whether you go to the right or go to the left, you're going to end up at point B anyway. It just depends on the route you take there. So just go with your gut and stop overthinking things.
So if somebody had like a question about like our conversation today, or they're interested in joining the Passionista project or the Sisterhood, what's the best way they can reach out to you?
Yeah. Come to our website, thepassionistasproject.com. There are links there to the Sisterhood. There are links there to all our social media. We are a DM or an email away. It's really easy to get in touch with us.
Yeah.
Great.
And we hope you do. We welcome any questions and any interactions, even if you don't join the Sisterhood and you just want to ask us for some advice or to introduce you to somebody. We're always happy to do that.
Do either of you or both of you have any like final thoughts like you'd like to share with our audience before we wrap up our podcast for today?
I would just say find your people. I think that's the most important thing, especially right now. Community, I think everyone's striving and thriving and looking for community. And so I would just say, find your people. Don't go it alone. It's going to be a rough road.
Yeah. I think I would say that too. Like, you don't have to go it alone. There are people that get you, and that people want to support. And the other thing that I've learned, this is a really important lesson for Nancy and I in the last, I say, even couple of years. People like to help. We used to be terrified of asking anybody for help. We were those kids in school where it was like, you're just supposed to get, a good grade and not ask for extra work and extra help and stuff. And so I've always had a really hard time asking people for help. And a few years ago, I realized, people actually like it. They like to give you advice. They want to make an introduction. They want to, see you succeed. And it makes people feel good that you trust them enough to go to them. And so if you're afraid to ask somebody for help, don't be afraid. Like, if someone turns you down, they're not your people. But there are people out there that want to help. So don't be afraid to ask for that.
Oh, I want to thank you, both of you, so much for coming on this podcast. I think, truly you both are really amazing people. I think I find it to be somewhat rare to find such, soul-hearted people that really genuinely want to help people out so much, and and so caring. And so it's so wonderful thank you so much. I have so much gratitude for both of you willing to be on my podcast and share about your experiences, your learnings, and what you're up to and how you're helping so many, women out there. And I think that's so important. And I really do hope that more women are at least aware of your community, because I think it is needed, especially like you said, like in today's economy. It's really rough to be do things on their own. It's tough to find a job on your own. It's time, it's figure out how to start a business, or how to grow your business and be successful, or find who's the right people to talk to. Like, who do you trust in today's age? So it's really, you guys are doing really important work, and I really want to thank you so much for everything you're both doing right now. It's so important.
Well, we feel the same about you. You're doing such important work, and it really means the world to us that you had us on and took the time to have this conversation. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah. Thank you, Daniel.